in our discussion of Torah, investigation of Torah, our thoughts involved in Torah, one of our considerations is how is it coming across to others to make others interested in it. And this is a topic that I think is very nogea, very applicable to this time of the year, because when you talk in terms of tshuva, as we mentioned, there's 4 stages of tshuva. There's knowing that you've sinned, recognizing you've sinned, feeling bad about it, making a commitment that you aren't going to do it again, and then pronouncing it, making a statement that you aren't going to do it again. You have to actually do vidui b'peh. You have to express it. And people talk about, okay, what's worse, what's not worse, and so forth. To most people, it's pretty understandable that the biggest problem is in the ability to make a commitment into the future that you're not going to do it again, right? So that's pretty understood to be the most difficult aspect of the tshuva process. But I believe there's another aspect of the tshuva process that may rival that in certain ways in terms of its complexity and its difficulty. And that is to truly see what you're doing wrong. In so many ways, it's not so easy to perceive that what you're doing is wrong. In other words, in a certain way, I should say, you have to do tshuva on what you think is a mitzvah to recognize that it's not a mitzvah but an avera. I pointed this out before, and I gave you 2 examples about this in terms of the 2 models of tshuva that are constantly mentioned, David HaMelech and Yehuda the son of Yaakov. In both cases, they are both considered to be the models of tshuva. Okay, David is with Bathsheba, but what's interesting is David did not know that he did a sin. He did not know that he did something wrong. Natan Hanavi had to tell him he did something wrong. Once he was explained to him he did something wrong, he said Chatati Lashem, a terrible sin, and he immediately did tshuva and had charata and felt bad and so forth and so forth. But the idea that he did not know it is very powerful. There's a whole perception, do you see it or do you not see it? And then there is Yehuda. Yehuda is even further. Yehuda is ready to execute Tamar. He actually thought that Tamar was wrong, and he was doing something right by something correct and noble by arranging for the execution of Tamar. And then Tamar points out to him that, wait a second, you let it go with the Yibum thing and so forth, and this is the person I slept with because it was actually you, because I want to fulfill the custom here. And what happens is Tuda says, Sadik Mimeni, you're more righteous than me. In fact, what I would have done would have been a tremendous sin. What I did was a sin, a tremendous sin. You're more righteous than me. And Tamar had to explain that to Yehuda. So the idea that you are able to perceive, okay, that there's a challenge in making sure you are perceiving right and wrong correctly. Now, I have an issue that really bothers me. It's an issue that is extremely powerful in the world today. It has a lot to do with how we relate to the greater segment of the Jewish world. When we reach out to people and we try to encourage them and bring them into Torah, we usually evaluate the our action based upon the success level of people observing more mitzvot. Right? We got the person into the shul. We got the person to keep kosher. We're getting the person to do this or that and so forth. And the question I have is, what's the cost? Is there a cost? And if there is, what's the cost? And what I'm becoming more and more concerned about is that in a certain way, when we reach out, we sometimes are taking the standard of attracting individuals and saying, if we attract them, we're successful. But in order to attract them, we actually have to amend Torah. We actually have to make Torah more palatable, more acceptable, or more desirous. And are we seeing that? Are we balancing that? Are we evaluating that? And to me, that is a very powerful issue that we have in our world today. And it comes up in a variety of ways, and that's why it sort of has come up in this year, is because I've confronted this in the in a certain ways in the last during the last week, the same issue, and I thought I would talk about it. Let me give you one example. There's an individual who was presented with a concept. And, in his person's education about being frum, he was presented with a certain concept. Okay? Alex, you have something I'll read in a sec. Now, what occurred is somehow this person heard me speak, and heard some things I was talking about this concept, and I obviously presented some ideas in a way that was different than he was originally taught. But he was interested, and he went investigating and so forth and so forth. And in his investigation, he came across a website that he thought was totally legit because of the way the site described itself and defined and called itself. And really, what he read, he read something that he said, gee, this looks like Rabbi Hecht was right in that concept. He wrote me and said, I have proof, you see this and this and this. And he sent me a link to the site, and what it was something written by a Reformed rabbi. And what occurred is that the Reformed rabbi took an idea and extended it beyond its correct parameters. So the idea being that and therefore and this idea had something to do with the concept that I was presenting. So what happened was, to go over it basically, is that there's concept A. Okay, he was taught concept A. I challenged a little aspect of concept A, and I said, you should know that concept A, there's a certain challenge from concept B. This was revolutionary to him, because he heard concept A. What then he found out is he saw this site that seemed to support concept B, but it was really from a Reform rabbi who took concept B and extended it to concept C. And he said, you see this proves Rabbi Hecht's position of concept B was correct. I said, no, wait a second. I think concept B is correct, but this site that he read extended it to concept C, and that is beyond the pale. So I had a discussion with another Rav. How do I handle this? How do I handle this individual who, because I introduced concept B, he then read sites that took it to concept C. So how do I respond to that? So this individual said to me, you have to go back to concept A. This person cannot go beyond concept A. Okay. So let's try and understand what's going on over here. Concept A is a simplistic statement that supports Torah observance in a very concrete, simple way. It's simplistic, though. I threw out concept B in order to make the person understand that the concept A is simplistic and there's a little bit more depth to this issue, all within Torah. But concept B becomes the opening to extend the possibilities for heresy, for reform concepts, and so forth. Now, so what do I do? So, the response of the Jewish response of people is, no, you got to keep him in concept A. He can't handle concept B, so you got to keep him in concept A. And the problem I have is concept A is problematic. The real Torah is in concept B. But he can't handle concept B because he won't be able to distinguish concept B from concept C that's involved in Reform Judaism. Am I being clear? Let me try and give an example. An example that's works within halacha. There are certain mechanics of halacha that considers certain movement within halacha. Okay, all within the halachic system, where there's a halachic principle. Halachic principle meets a certain reality and comes to a certain halachic conclusion. If the reality changes, the halachic conclusion will change. One of the classic examples that's coming up is showers on Yom Tov. This is a big issue. A lot of people point out that basically the halacha that existed for ages is people shouldn't take showers on Yom Tov. Okay? Nowadays, there's an argument that comes up that says that because showers become now everyday occurrences, people shower every day, it would be permitted to take a shower on Yom Tov. Why? Because things that are necessary for your benefit of a certain nature, like cooking, you're allowed to use hot water on Yom Tov to wash your hands, whatever. So certain things that you're allowed to do for Yom Tov. But those are things that you have to do on Yom Tov because you can't do it beforehand. But if you're able to do it beforehand, you can't do it on Yom Tov. When we say certain things are mutter and Yom Tov in terms of malachas, in terms of forbidden activities, it's only because it can't be done before Yom Tov. So back in the time of the Gemara, what do they do for bathhouses? They didn't bathe every day. They didn't really do major washing every day. They used to go to the bathhouse once a week. So the answer of the halacha is, well, go to the bathhouse. Then go before Yom Tov. You shouldn't go on Yom Tov. Since you can do that malacha of heating up the water, since you do this thing of using this hot water before, and you don't have to use it on Yom Tov, shouldn't warm it up on Yom Tov. But nowadays, we shower every day. The same way we wash our hands every day. Most people, a lot of people, they shower every day. Normal to shower every day. Therefore, showering yesterday, you'll still would normally, if this wasn't Yom Tov, you would shower today. So the argument is given that because that's so, you're dealing with a different situation. So the statement this is halachic, that this was forbidden 200 years ago, is not applicable today because there's a change in the circumstances. I'll give you another example. There are people who hold today that not only are you permitted to shave on Chol HaMoed, but it's a chiyuv. You really should shave on Chol HaMoed. Okay? So I think that's the position of Yoshe Ber, Rabbi Soloveitchik. Because the prohibition of not shaving on Chol HaMoed and not taking haircuts on Chol HaMoed is because they didn't shave, they didn't take haircuts, only once a week, whatever it was, but they didn't do it every day. Therefore, there's a concept. Well, the Chazal made an edict that you, for covet of Yontif, for the honor of Yontif, of holiday, you should shower, or you should shave before Yontif. But nowadays, there are people who shave every day. So when they don't shave on Chol HaMoed, right? What occurs? Well, they couldn't have shaved before Chol HaMoed. There's other arguments like this also. If you look to the Gemara Miri Katan, there's other arguments given that if you couldn't shave before Yontif, you're allowed to shave at Chol HaMoed. But the point is, so he points out, but the fact is, that's talking in a world where they shave once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever. But if a person shaves every day, then the fact that he shaved before Yontif, the point is he would want to shave Chol HaMoed anyways. Telling him not to shave on Chol HaMoed has nothing to do with him ignoring preparing before Yontif. Not only that, but if he doesn't shave on Chol HaMoed, it looks like he is not treating Chol HaMoed with proper respect, because what do we do before Yontif? We want to clean up. We want to shave. Therefore, in Chol HaMoed, we also want to look good. That's more in line with the theory of Yontif. So if you shave every day, maybe it should be that you should also shave in Chol HaMoed, even though if you look in the straightforward halacha in the Shulchan Aruch, you're not supposed to. Because halacha is dynamic. Okay. Now, I'm saying over this case, here's an example. But if I give this example out there in the world, you're going to hear someone say, yeah, and the reason that they didn't eat pork was because they had trichinosis, and now that we got good refrigeration, there shouldn't be this prohibition. Total nourishment. Not based on the halachic reasons, but based upon the idea that since that can change, why can't this change? Because they're halachic principles, and it can change, and that take into fact that certain facts can change the halachic conclusion, and there's other halachic principles say no, they can't change the halachic conclusion. That becomes a much more sophisticated understanding of the halacha. So this leads to a problem. This leads to a problem. If you want someone to follow the halacha, if someone's just coming into Judaism, the person, if you start talking about the true methodology of halacha, which involves the sophisticated knowledge of how halacha is dynamic and the parameters around that dynamic nature, that takes sophistication. And if you put in any argument that says it can change, because the facts change, then it'll be picked up by then some reform person will take that to allow Reform Judaism. Therefore, the simple answer is that you don't even give that option to people. Say halacha doesn't change, the details don't change. But what you're doing is you're ignoring the real dynamic nature of the halacha. This is a tension. This is a tension. Where because we're concerned about the result and the potential problematic conclusions that could possibly emerge from the depth of the teaching, we simplify Judaism, we simplify Torah to make it palatable. Okay? Now, Alex has wrote over here, but hasn't it been a part of Judaism for a long time? Statement by rabbis that certain mitzvahs in Shulchan Aruch are hard to keep, and worrying the public will never accept something. Okay, so he's saying that hasn't been concern for people that we have to present Judaism in a certain way that will make it acceptable. Right? Okay? Okay? Then Alex brings down the point with the shaving that yes, that was the Rav's viewpoint, and he said that basically was the same thing. Okay. But the point is by ignoring that depth, you're amending Judaism. So this is an example. This is a problem that I'm dealing with. That I think we have to deal with. How much is our concern for outreach, for trying to bring people under the comfort of Torah? How much is our concern that we're amending the Torah in order to make it acceptable or understandable, okay, within a range? And does that take away from the ultimate expression of Torah? And in certain ways, this is becoming a real issue to me. And I'll tell you where else I have an issue. See, it becomes an issue where we are concerned about not being too deep or too sophisticated, because that could lead a person to make a mistake. But there's a problem also with it not being too sophisticated. We're changing the very essence of Torah. Okay? Now, Alex says, does it apply only to outreach? Isn't it also applicable to the from birth community? The difference between the religion of a scholar and that of a common person. Yes. That is a tension that exists. It's not just outreach, it's a tension that exists. Okay? And that is, to me, something that we have to think about. You see, when I look at Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, I think it's a time of introspection. It's time for us to examine what we're doing, and even examine what we think are mitzvot, the mitzvot that we're doing. And in a certain way, that's what I'm raising here. We go about living in our world in a certain way. It's a heterogeneous world. It's a heterogeneous world. What I mean by heterogeneous Jewish world. The spectrum of Jews go from left to right. Right? You know, my wife is a big fan of House, and she just took out some videos of House. The truth is that I sometimes like watching House because I like the medical aspect of it. Like, you know, I might come in and watch a couple minutes and hear about the disease and try to figure out what the answer is. Okay, that's a little thing like that. Anyways, there was a situation where he was going out with this woman who was Jewish, and the woman's mother asked him if he's going to convert. And he says, no, I'm an atheist, I'm not going to convert. So the woman says, well, more than half the Jews that I know are atheists. Right? Being Jewish is not about belief, being Jewish is about community. What an unbelievable statement. And you know what's strange about it? It's a tremendously, powerfully, possibly true statement. How many Jews really think in terms of God? But what's interesting about it is they start using definitions that are religious in trying to express it. So we call the way of becoming a Jew conversion. Well, which implies some kind of religious belief. Now the truth is part of the tension that exists in conversion, because Gerus Halacha, correct conversion al pi halacha, begins with the acceptance of Torah Mishamayim. You have to accept that God gave the Torah. So really, theoretically, an atheist can convert. But this woman is obviously not talking, this show isn't talking about Orthodox, it's talking about the attitude in the Jewish world. Now, that's a very interesting idea. Now, we're working with a Jewish world that possibly doesn't see itself as really a faith community. It sees itself as much more an ethnic group. Okay, and I have a whole article where I pointed this out, that is it that like obviously from a religious perspective, we believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who created a specific nation called Klal Yisrael. But what comes first is the reality of God that created the nation of Israel. But for most Jews, they see themselves as Jews, ethnically Jews, part of the Jewish nation, part of the tribe, okay? And their religious practices are their way of identifying with the group. That's Reconstructionist Judaism. But there's a lot of Jews out there. Even a lot of people who are Orthodox Jews. They perceive the fact that keeping Shabbos, they keep kosher, that their number one expression is, I'm a member of the Jewish people, and the way I identify as a Jew is through religion. Right? An American may identify by watching football on Thanksgiving. The way I identify is by fasting Yom Kippur. But not really, because it doesn't start with that religious aspect. So, you look at a world out there that's looking at this, so when you start saying, okay, so I have to relate to that perception. So I welcome Jews, all these things like that. But the fact is that, am I getting across to the people, okay, the fact that it really starts with God. It doesn't start with, A, be a member of the Jewish people and do it through doing mitzvot. It starts with believing in God, who tells you that you should identify as a Jew. So what I see happening is that there is such that people are taking this underlying feeling of Jewishness and they're finding out ways of reinforcing it, and therefore getting people to observe Jewish actions. Actions that say that I'm identifying as a Jew. But what we're not doing, though, is getting people to confront the fact that it really starts with the Kodesh Baruch Hu being mitzvah and telling you certain statements, certain ideas, certain directions. And it starts with a statements that may affect your consciousness. See, what I find is that people who do a lot of mitzvot ben adam l'makom, that can be very easy to do. Well, a lot of people don't like it, but it can be very easy to do for a lot of people, because they still stay the way they are. They're basically the same, right? I like family. I do this. I'm going to do it the Jewish way by serving kosher food. But basically, I'm the same person. I think the same. I don't act the same, but I think the same. I relate the same. I'm the same Joe. I'm now just religious Joe, because I'm finding that this Jewishness aspect that I have. Alex is asking me now about that house. Yes, it's a TV show. Okay. But the fact is that I don't change. The point is the essence of Torah is, because you accept HaKadosh Baruch Hu directing you in your life, is that you have to become a different being. You can't be the same. And it's not just about the action. It's about the fact that the concepts of Torah permeate through you and develop within you a different person. You become a different person, and the truth is you become a different person that's totally different than other people. I was watching a few minutes of the debate last night of the Republicans. I found it absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking. That you have people who are devout Christians, and my understanding of Christianity is it's all about grace and it's all about charity and giving and so forth and so forth. And you have people basically saying right? They were against, giving free medical care to everyone. I found it very interesting. Here you have very devout Christians who are against all the liberal perceptions of the government. These people shouldn't get free medical care. They shouldn't get this. They shouldn't get that. And I'm looking at this and say, how do they put that together? How do they come together with this? Probably very okay, because Conshai asks, why should that surprise you? Because isn't Christianity? I know I said grace a little bit differently, Alex. I understand that, but what I'm saying is the essence of Christianity is selflessness, social action, helping the poor. Helping the person who's downtrodden. So I'm shocked that here are people. Person basically takes a certain attitude that, okay, fine, I don't want to help. I'm into freedom and into that. It's very interesting when you really look at it, that the fundamental values that the United States was built upon, which is all the freedoms, emerged from the development of a more atheistic attitude in Europe in the 1700s. People like Rousseau, Voltaire, right? Were very much throwing off the yoke of the church, and all the freedoms came about by trying to throw off the yoke of the church. Okay. The point is behind Christianity. I'm going to get to your questions in a sec, contract. When you get involved in Christianity, okay, you guys are challenging me on this. Let me try to explain this. Christianity believes in helping others. Okay? Turn the other cheek, but also assisting others. Assisting the poor, assisting the downtrodden. That's a fundamental aspect of Christian thought. The meek shall inherit the earth, so forth. The fact is, there's a concept of helping others. Very much so, even at the expense of self. Okay? That is a Christian concept. Okay? So what I'm saying is you look at this, and one of the arguments they had against Judaism, against Torah Judaism, was that they said that Torah Judaism did not have enough heart. They had laws, but they didn't have enough heart. And Christianity says you have to have heart. You have to care. Okay. So the point is that I would think that it would be much more in line with a Christian consciousness to say, hey, we're going to offer health care to everyone. We're going to try and take care of to people, and you for sure will offer help to the poor, but you offer help to everyone. Okay, you're trying to, in many ways, you try to assist the people who are downtrodden. Okay? Now, the point is I find it very interesting. Obviously, my attitude is not shared by these people who really are devout Christians. So obviously I must be wrong. I'm saying this is what I would expect. And here I see individuals who are devout Christians, take very strong Christian attitudes, and it seems that from that attitude, there's the idea that they're very much against healthcare, social healthcare. Now, in a certain way, I understand that from libertarians. I think Ayn Rand would be very much in favor of that, and that is an outgrowth of the arguments of freedom. Right? That person should be free to make his own decisions and suffer the consequences of those decisions. But the truth is that's very much sounds like a Torah concept. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us Bechira, and the idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God gave us free choice, is an idea that, and with free choice, we can make decisions and be held responsible for our actions. That's the concept of Schar V'Onish, of reward and punishment, that I am going to be held accountable. And from a Jewish perspective, if I do something right, God has to reward me. If I do something wrong, there may be a punishment. That's in God's decision making. But the very essence of this world is that God gave us the ability to make decisions and accept the consequences, because that's what makes us more godlike. Now, what I'm saying though is that's very contrary to Christianity. The whole concept of Christianity is that man cannot earn his future world. The only way man can earn his future world is through grace, which basically means you can't do it on your own. You have to be helped. And therefore there's a concept that you help others because you're being helped. And therefore there's a concept that, hey, someone should not be held. So the idea is you are going to fail if you're held responsible. Therefore, that's where the concept of grace comes about. Is that since you're going to fail anyways, you're saved. But the perception is that you're getting the chance you're going to fail. So the point is, it's based upon the fact that if you're given freedom, you're going to fail. Now, there's a whole issue like this, the Calvinistic point. I'm not going to go into whole Christianity. I'm not such a bucky in Christianity. Okay, I don't have to be. I'm just using an example. But the fact is that in a certain way, my understanding is that Christianity says you can't be responsible. There's no point in you being responsible because you can't be. Okay? In other words, you're not going to make it if you're responsible. Therefore, I have to help you out. It's Torah that says, because Baruch Hu gave us the greatest gift to give us the ability to be responsible and accept the consequences of that responsibility. That's what makes us really responsible. Yet, at the same point in time, where we have a whole perspective of responsibility, the fact is that it is a legal obligation al pi halacha to assist others. Tzedakah in halacha is not just charity. If you look at the concept of tzedakah that's mentioned in terms of the Jewish communities, when we had Jewish communities, it was a tax. If you were a member of the community, you had to pay your tax to assist the poor. And to assist in burials and assist in health care. You have an obligation of refuah. You can't stand by and let someone else go down. So the truth of the matter is, there's a famous story of the Vilna Gaon that said the Vilna Gaon didn't complete his studies in medicine. The Vilna Gaon, they say that he studied everything. He felt that any lack of knowledge in secular studies would mean a tenfold lack of knowledge in Torah. When you already know Kula Torah Kula, then obviously you understand more Torah Kula, more of Torah, and more you understand more about the world. So he studied everything. The only study he didn't complete was medicine. And the story goes is because if he felt if he would have learned medicine, okay, he'd never be able to learn because he would constantly have an obligation to help others. We have an obligation to assist. Right? Okay, al tamad al dam riyacha. Don't stand by while the other person is ill. So you have to help someone. You have a positive duty of care in halacha. You see someone drowning, you have a positive duty to try and save the person. Okay, and the truth is, if you see people who are ill, you have a positive duty to help them out. And that defines itself in terms of a governmental concept within halacha. What happened was the government says, listen, we as a community have an obligation to help out, and therefore we as a community have to create structures within our government, the Torah government, to take care of these things. So I would tend to argue that within a Jewish commonwealth, a Torah Jewish commonwealth, there would be some type of healthcare program. because the community has an obligation to make sure everyone is taken care of. So that's a halachic obligation. That comes out of the world of obligations. Comes out of the world of structure. I just find it interesting that this religion that says caring for others basically says, hey, we don't want to accept the obligation of having to have more taxes to help others. Well, Torah, out of the world of obligation, says yes. Now, how did I get into this? Okay? Now, you guys are making some statements over here, challenging me on some of these ideas and so forth and so forth. Yeah, okay. There was one statement, I think Alan makes a statement that people are against socialized medicine because it lessens the quality and availability of healthcare. Okay, yeah, that's a problem, and it's an issue in Canada. It's interesting, in Canada, you see the difficulties with socialized medicine and so forth. But, okay, but what I'm really doing is, okay, Alex asks, is it true that a traditional halachic community really helped more than a Christian community? The fact of the matter is what I'm saying is that the traditional halachic community created a structure that demanded the members to be involved in helping out. It was a taxation. I don't know if charitable Christians gave more charity to poor people than came out of the Jewish community. Okay? But the fact is, I do know that the Jewish community created an obligation that everyone had to pay the tax to help the poor. It was a tax. I'll tell you what I mean by that. Okay? If a guy didn't pay his taxes, the officers, the police of the community can go into his house and take his belongings to pay the tax. And one of the aspects of tax was to cover the kupat tzedakah. There was certain communal obligations to take care of the poor. Okay? Okay? Yeah, and by the way, the conscience mentioned this point over here, a better juxtaposition for this is modern secularism, which stresses individual rights over community responsibilities. Yeah, I'm saying that this is for sure comes out of modern secularism. Okay? In terms of that idea, okay, but the fact is, I'm pointing out what shocked me is for sure the arguments would come to modern secularists. I have no. Ayn Rand would give us mostly it was Jewish anyways, but Ayn Rand would give a modern argument of modern secularism like that. I understand it totally. What shocked me was these were people who perceived themselves, who defined themselves as devout Christians. Fundamentalist Christians. That's what I found shocking. Okay, I haven't read that article. I'm not even sure what okay, Conscience has asked me if I read the. I'm sorry. I'm repeating it because I'm taping for Kosher Tube as well. And by the way, you guys, I hope you take a look at Kosher Tube and see the follow up on the shir. I think last week's shir came up pretty good. But the fact is that so I'm repeating the statements here that. Conchai asked me did I read the remarkable essay of Rabbi Sachs of the UK that ran in Standpoint magazine. I haven't. I'm not even sure what Standpoint magazine is, so I have to check out what that is. Okay? Okay? Okay. But by the way, this is not an attack on all Christianity I'm pointing out. What I'm just trying to say is I found it a little bit shocking that it's a certain segment. I'm not saying only Christians, but I find it very interesting to find that you find certain Christians being the forefront of the libertarian movement, or almost like the libertarian movement. Okay, okay, okay. But what I'm getting at though. Okay. Thank you, Conchai, for giving me the URL. Okay, but the fact is what I'm getting at is something a little bit different. What I'm trying to get at here, going back to my original thoughts, was I was trying to make a point about the fact that the real fact is that a lot of these issues are the real issues in terms of understanding um, 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 what am I trying to say? In terms of understanding how Torah is supposed to permeate our consciousness. See, I got into this whole perspective because I talked about people, how they think and how they analyze, and you can get people doing quote unquote ritual without actually changing them. It's when Torah comes out there and says, like even in this discussion, I throw out an idea that Torah may say that, and I'm not saying it does, it may be more in favor of socialized management. The truth of the matter is, I think Torah has an aspect where it favors some aspects of socialized medicine, but it also favors a a co-payment structure. In other words, I think that using that has a system where the people don't pay themselves may also be a problem. But Torah may develop its own system. But if you try and throw out Torah in that type of idea, in real issues that hit the world, and say, you know something? Torah may be affecting the way you think, and the way you analyze, and the way you perceive others, and the way you look at others, and change the way you're thinking. I think it would create a much more interesting dynamic. In certain ways, it's easy to get people to do ritual. They don't have to change, right? They just are finding something else that they can enjoy their way of living. A lot of times that's what's happening. I like my family now. Now I find out I have a great thing because I get this feeling of family from the Friday night meal. Okay, that's great. That's great, super. Okay. But basically it's the same attitude. It's when you start having Torah talk in terms of real life issues and wonder, okay, what's the Torah perspective on the issues that were debated by the Republicans last night? And you start saying, whoa, that's getting me to be a little bit more, that's getting right into me, into my psyche, into the way I think. And that may not get people really, jumping up and down. You sort of have to first say, I accept that Torah has a voice. Now let it speak and shake me up. You're not saying, hey, I want to. No, Torah is not something I'm going to use to get my feeling of Jewishness. It's not. Torah is becoming something that's actually directing me and creating some type of dialogue, even debate with me, because it's challenging things that may actually be built upon. Okay, so that's part of what I'm getting at. I think that's part of what we have to look at in vis-a-vis Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. Okay, and that's why I sort of get involved in these things. It's not so much that I want to talk about Christianity, but the fact is, what's the Torah view on this? And do I understand Torah to challenge me and take issues with me? And therefore it causes me to go through shifts. And it's things that I think are absolutely correct nowadays. Do I walk away saying, gee, maybe it's not so correct? Maybe the way I'm thinking is wrong. Okay? Okay. Okay, so anyways, that's something to think about. Okay, so but anyways, my point I wanted to get at tonight is the fact that the introspection that comes from Torah is getting us to look at ourselves, think about what we think is right, and figure out, hey, maybe what I'm thinking is right is nearly not right. Now, I was going to put this in the context of dealing with the general community, and I also was going to get into issues of how I relate to the other branches, because, as I mentioned to you guys before, I think it's extremely important to articulate the distinction between the branches, because that gets people thinking, and then making decisions. Okay, and maybe we'll get more into that next week. We always come back to that. Okay, I'm going to give up the mic if anyone has anything to say. Okay, No one took the mic. So okay. So okay. So okay. Okay. So okay. Conchai says like this, Rabbi, I'm okay with asking what's the Torah view on this, but to think any of these candidates, with the exception maybe of Michelle Bachmann, is a sincere Christian like, say, Gladstone was in England in the 19th century, seems like a false proposition to me. Maybe so. But I'll tell you something, Bachmann really shocked me though. Okay, I know that this is a challenge because she's very pro-Israel and so forth and so on, but I was really, in certain ways, shocked by her viewpoint, and I find it very interesting that she's such a solid Christian and has very strong libertarian viewpoints. And a lot of people don't recognize that the values. I mean, a lot of Jews don't recognize it. I mean, how many Jews recognize that we're tremendous fans of freedom of religion? We have benefited from freedom of religion. But would we practice freedom of religion? Do we agree with freedom of religion from a Torah perspective? We've benefited from it. Thank God that that these people were the land we lived with had freedom of religion. Okay? But the point is do we? Now, the truth is, I think we do on a certain level. Yes, for another share. But the fact is how many Americans recognize that there's a tension there? Because the freedoms that were based of the Americans came out of the movement away from the church in the 18th century, motivated by individuals who basically are now perceived to be much more atheistic, such as Rousseau. A lot of things that are happening in our world today, the whole movements of freedom, come from the fact that, the autonomy aspect, that people should be allowed to make their own decisions. And when that was originally stated in the 18th century, that was people should be allowed to make decisions, not the church, not religion. Okay? Okay, Alex says, I don't think that a halachic state would ever allow freedom of religion. Well, how do you live with that concept, Alex? Do you not think freedom of religion is a value? Okay? So Alex says, one of the reasons among many that I do not want to see halacha imposed on an unwilling public. Okay, he's responding absolutely. He does believe freedom of religion is a value. Okay. Certain ways, Rousseau. Okay. Interesting. I have to read more about Rousseau than Conchai. My understanding is that Rousseau also developed individual rights. Okay, I have to read more on that. Okay, I stand corrected. The truth is I don't see how. Okay, I have to do more of that. Okay. I have to. Okay. I have to do more work on Rousseau before I start quoting him. Okay, stand corrected. Okay. Anyways, but there's no doubt that by the general concept is in terms of freedom of religion. Alex, the fact that you say, "Gee, I would not like a," do you actually think that then how can you have respect for the halacha if it's going to be so contrary to a value that you hold called freedom of religion? The fact is that those questions, those are the questions that really should come out at Rosh Hashanah. Those are how we're analyzing ourselves. Those are looking into ourselves. And the answers aren't so simple. And the answers are challenging. And you don't want to have those answers because, whoa, if I start bringing up this whole issue, all these people will start saying, gee, I don't have anything to do with Judaism. It's all against freedom of religions, against autonomy, it's against rights. Okay? The fact is that Okay, the fact is, Alex says, well, I cannot imagine living in a society where halacha is state law, except perhaps in some idealized world to come. What you might be presenting is that halacha, to be the state law, has to have a certain perception. You have to understand something in halacha. Okay, that ignorance of the law is an excuse within halacha. What in our world system, okay, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Okay, you don't know the law, you're still held responsible for it. That's the only way society can function. Okay, it may have certain things, but society to function has to say ignorance of the law is not an excuse, because everyone will just be ignorant. Halacha says ignorance of the law is an excuse. You need hasra, you need to be warned before you can be held criminally responsible. So you're talking about a very, very different society, very different workings there. That's why it's much more complicated, much more confused, much more developed, and so forth. And as I said, there are certain aspects I think of freedom of religion from a Torah perspective. Okay, but we're opening up. But the fact is, when you open up these type of questions, it expands. Okay, everyone. I hope this was worthwhile. And I gotta do some work on Russo, it seems. Okay. But thank you. I hope this was worthwhile. But this is the kind of stuff we should be doing in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Okay? Okay. Good night, everyone.